Namaste, Galactic Family. Welcome back to my channel, IndigoAngel. If you're new, welcome. And if you're returning, don't forget to hit the notifications bell. Now, today I have a Starseed origin reading for the Queen of Palmyra in Syria. This would be Queen Zenobia. And why her energy encryption in particular has become relative to current time perceptions, right? We're kind of going through this collective archaic revival where we are merging back into time waves of previous eras, and their energy encryptions are becoming relative to current energy signatures on the planet. So if you're tuning into a lot of this prior past history energy as if you are re-experiencing the emergence on an emotional level, it's very much tied down to a lot of energy locations on the planet. Okay, so Queen Zenobia in particular, she held down one of the locations of the 5 goddess vortexes, which is considered the Syrian Pentagram that creates one of the most important energy points on the planetary grid. And I get kind of pumped up talking about this because I have been feeling such an influx of this divine mother energy coming in the planet, particularly with having so many planets within alignment to the stympahllion birds that we are receiving on the opposition. The divine feminine mother archetypal encryptions and planetary infusions of that goddess energy that is coming back in to basically complement and mirror in an oppositional balance to this trinity activation. And so this grid location has been activating more in accordance, like I said, to the avian trinity activations. And those stympahllion bird stargates are Vega, Lyra, AQUILA, or Altair, and Cygnus, and Deneb in Cygnus, which is the alpha star in Cygnus. And so, like I said, Sirius is in opposition to these stargate alignments, and Sirius Stargate is the celestial body that strongholds the Syrian Pentagram. So I'm going to go ahead and throw up a picture here of that Syrian Pentagram so y'all can take a look at that and the locations on the planet. So we are our attention on a collective level is being drawn to this pentagram. Now, Queen of Zenobia, she's a very, very important person in history. She's a very, very important part of our mythology when it comes to our relationship with Rome and how events unfolded during this time frame in history in the planetary Akashic records. So her rule was preceding the Ptolemaic kingdom, Alexander the Great, and Cleopatra. And if you look at her birth chart over here, AQUILA is a very profound guiding radial encryption, her origin. And it's interesting that this is all unfolding. This is all in alignment today specifically because I actually woke up this morning and pulled Stargate alignments for January 13th. That's what today is, right? Pulled Stargate alignments for January 13th, and the sun is actually 23 degrees Capricorn today, and her sun is 23 degrees Capricorn. So it's just, so synchronistically unfolding that 23 degrees Capricorn would be that AQUILA origin. So it's just confirmation from the universe that I am, really in alignment to the planetary grids and also the archetypal energy that activates along with those grid sites. Another thing about the Ptolemaic kingdom is that it was ruled by the eagle of Zeus. So they actually have coins from 305 BC where they have the eagle on their actual money that they used. And the eagle of Zeus was one of the chief attributes of the personification of Zeus. So it's the head of the Olympian pantheon. But essentially, it's all kind of merging together this expression planetarily is being activated through these Stargate grid sites. So here is what has been wrote about Queen Zenobia. They say Zenobia is perhaps the only female whose superior genius broke through the servile indolence imposed on her sex by the climate and manners of Asia. She claimed her descent from the Macedonian king of Egypt, equaled in her beauty her ancestors Cleopatra, and she far surpassed that princess in chastity and valor. Zenobia was esteemed the most lovely as well as the most heroic of her sex. She was of a dark complexion, her teeth were of a pearly whiteness, and her large black eyes sparkled with uncommon fire, tempered by the most attractive sweetness. Her voice was strong and harmonious. Her manly understanding was strengthened and adorned by study. And take note of that manly understanding, okay? That is very particular of the expression, the celestial expression of AQUILA. Any divine feminine will have a masculine understanding with AQUILA in the birth chart. She was not ignorant of the Latin tongue, but possessed an equal perfection of the Greek, the Syriac, and the Egyptian languages. She had drawn up for her own use an epitome of Oriental history and familiarly compared the beauties of Homer and Plato under the tuition of the sublime Longinus. Okay, so this is how later generations did come to understand the Queen of Palmyra, Queen Zenobia, and this is how ancient readers and later generations came to regard her. Also, the alleged claim of being connected to Cleopatra does seem to have been possibly just a politically motivated rumor, potentially, but it was giving her that connection with Egypt, so this did make her appear to be a legitimate successor. So overall, she's been one of the most powerful females in historical divine feminine rule. And it's coming up because the Syrian energy vortex is activating. There's going to be a lot more coming up in the news with Syria, with the Middle East, and this particular pentagram is inscribed into the planetary shields. This is a planetary activation. So this is very much plugged in to the belief structures that uphold the encryptions, that uphold the radial mythology and definitions, that this is within those grid networks that this resides. And therefore, it's very much a part of our overall expression of the divine feminine as we go through this collective archaic revival, where the collective consciousness is playing out through this regeneration of this era, this previous era energy. In the hands of the light forces, this pentagram is an instrument of good that can transform the whole Middle East and can be a huge transmitter of positive feminine energy. In the hands of the dark, this pentagram can create much suffering, as the people in Syria have experienced in the last few years. So all 5 points on the Syrian pentagram are key towns in Syria that have had a strong connection with the goddess energy throughout our rich and vast past. So real quick, I'm just going to go over these locations. The planetary locations that are strong held by the Sirius Stargate, the Divine Mother Goddess Vortexes. They are Aleppo, Syria, Homs, Syria, Palmyra, Syria, which is Zenobia's rule, Raqqa, Syria, and Manbij, Syria. All of these other locations were also ruled by other goddesses of our great past, but Queen Zenobia was undoubtedly the strongest and most influential. If you look at her chart here, this picture of her that I have underneath the Godhead here with the with her standing and overlooking This is actually a very famous drawing of her. It's called Queen Zenobia's Last Look Upon Palmyra. This was drew up by a guy named Herbert Gustave Chamals, who basically was an English painter, and he painted pictures of Queen Zenobia. This was in 1888 that this was painted, but essentially there are these gold chains that supposedly this was at the time of her demise, the time of her fall, the time where her reign kind of was at the end of rule, but she was shackled in gold chains is what they say. So that's why those were important. But it's a very symbolic picture of how they regarded her even in her demise. They shackled her in gold chains. So she was an important queen because she led the revolt against the oppression of the Roman Empire. A divine feminine who reigned over the Palmyrian Empire in Syria from 267 to 272 AD was the initiation of the revolt against the oppression of the Roman Empire. So if you look at her chart here, you can also see that the birthplace, I just put unofficial location because it most likely was Palmyra that she was born, but I just left it unknown on the chart because honestly, I do feel that the location's probably truly really unknown. And I just wanted to give a disclaimer for this reading. This chart that I used today that I converted to origins, this reading it's metaphorical or even fictional, these interpretations of her origins, particularly because I really have no way to verify if this information is correct or not. She was supposedly born between 240 AD and 245 AD, so the year's definitely not confirmed. And there's not a lot of accurate recordings for these ancient birth records. So this chart I did pull from the internet, from harmoniclife.com. So I'll leave a link in the description if you want to go look at the birth chart yourself and do an interpretation on what actually, is provided on the internet. I really just don't have any legitimate way to verify Queen Zenobia's birthday. This was, 240 AD. There's nothing, there's no way for me to verify the birth records overall. So let's just say this is a hypothetical reading today. I also wanted to mention that there isn't any software either that goes back previous to the 1800s and back. So I haven't came across astrological software that I could plug in birth charts from the 1400s, the 1500s, and pull the natal information beyond the 1800s. So if anyone has any reference for this, please let me know. Drop any links in the comments. I would love to be able to check out software that could pull any time. That would be incredible. So quickly, I wanted to mention also, I have just published and released my new book, How to Read Celestial Akashic Records. And you can also find this in the links in the description if you would like to purchase my new book. Also, if you would like a Starseed origin reading, please visit my website, IndigoAngel222.com. Okay, guys, so namaste. Thank you. So here is her chart. This is what I have. And like I said, hypothetical reading. Again, I came across this chart from harmoniclife.com. They are stating her birthday is December 23rd, 240 AD. One thing I'd just like to quickly notate is that these powerful females, okay, they all seem to be born within Vega, AQUILA, or Cygnus radial influence within their godheads, sun, moon, or rising. This has been a very common theme. There is definitely something about this origin in particular having direct avian markers within the godhead that define the warrior in the divine feminine. Joan of Arc had Vega in her sun. Greta Thunberg had Vega in her sun and her moon. And I know some of y'all are not fans of Greta Thunberg because of relativity to our current time and the hypocrisy and the political controversy and all of the, things that are happening within our current time. Just know when I'm pulling these birth charts or these energy, signatures, I look at these as roadmaps to reading planetary Akashic records. Essentially, each one of these encryptions holds a key or an implosion point to see into a greater realm or a greater timeline or a greater event that happened that further defines the dynamics of that expression within the planetary energy. Okay, so we can utilize beings from our past to be able to essentially time travel. Okay, Greta Thunberg became relative because as much as we, like it or not, she has become a very influential divine feminine. So I was guided to look in her encryption. And of course, she had Vega in her sun and moon. So she's very much a Lyran starseed. If you are under the belief that every being on Earth is a starseed, which I do embody that belief myself. I believe everybody is made of the stars themselves. So everybody holds this potential inside of them. Interestingly, Abraham Hicks has Vega in her moon. Queen of England Elizabeth II has AQUILA in her rising. Queen of England Elizabeth I has Vega Lyra in her moon. And then, according to this unofficial birth chart of Queen of Zenobia, she has AQUILA in her sun and her Mercury. Okay, so just to give you an overall idea of the energy signatures or archetypal figures that express this celestial body, I wanted to run through those divine feminines throughout history that have held these stympahllion birds within their godhead. Vega and AQUILA both being, like I said, a part of the stympahllion birds, and that is a very powerful avian trinity, Vega, AQUILA, and Cygnus, that hold the harmonics of a higher divine masculine encryption of the Trinity energy. So these females in leadership, rulership, and battle all embodied this masculine authority in their feminine expression. So just expect females carrying Vega, AQUILA, and Cygnus in their sun, moon, or rising to be very profound historical leader type females. At the beginning of Queen Zenobia's rule, she followed in her husband's footsteps, okay? She worked along with Rome's interest. However, the Roman Empire was undergoing its imperial crisis. The Roman Empire just nearly collapsed. It was combined with all these pressures of these barbarian invasions and migrations into the Roman territory, civil wars, peasant rebellions, political instability. It just was not a very good time for the Roman Empire. And therefore, this was kind of what gave her opportunity, was because the Roman Empire was such a mess. And all of these internal conflicts, prevented the empire from maintaining control far beyond the borders of Rome, because they were, so immersed in the immediate happenings of their city. So with the center of Rome crumbling, Queen Zenobia, she turned her focus on expanding her own empire. In 269 AD, she focused on strengthening her own military, concentrating her power in the east. In 270 AD, she broke off all of these friendly relations with Rome, and she just began basically taking over their lands. She's the only woman in history to rise up against Rome in the way that she did. Okay, just think of how, powerful that is, coming through this divine feminine uprise. She began annexing Egypt in 270 AD, defeating the Roman army, and she gained a stronghold on Egypt. She secured Egypt, and then she turned her attention to securing parts of Asia and Phoenicia. She also focused on establishing diplomatic ties, negotiating trade agreements with neighboring lands to further strengthen her empire. So she rose in this leadership destiny. All of this very well could have been if this birth chart is somewhere close to her energy encryption, which I feel that I've had confirmation today that it is, because woke up this morning, checked the sun alignments. Well, guess what? Sun alignments for January 13 is at 23 degrees AQUILA. I pulled Zenobia's birth chart, 23 degrees AQUILA. Okay, so I get excited about that because I feel like that is confirmation from the particular Stargate system itself that therefore gives me some type of confirmation that this is in alignment. Aquila, interestingly enough, represents the royal bird of Rome, and the star encryption carries the Greek and Roman timelines within its Akashic records. So if you open up the encryption to Aquila, you're going to open Akashic records to Rome and to Greece and to Syria. Aquila defines bravery that guides the principle of one's life, and above all else, this star system, it's going to throw you into situations that demand fast action. You're going to find that you're inspiring others through simply just developing these skills of leadership. You inherently and subconsciously will seek difficult situations to illuminate your path to success. Divine feminines with notable placements of Aquila will be a strong feminine with great masculine tact and authority. They can be temperamental and demanding, and they will power through their wits to get what they need and desire. And often during the younger years, they will be very tomboyish. They'll have strong friendships with the masculine as one of the boys. They're not going to be a girly girl feminine. So yes, she also, if hypothetically this reading is correct, she also has, I could not confirm any of the houses, so the rising nor the midheaven. I also could not really confirm the north or the south node either. But she would have Corvus and her Venus and her Mars. Also Aldebaran, Jupiter and Neptune, Spica and Saturn, Andromeda and Uranus, Corvus and Pluto. There's definitely a lot of connections to the Raven as well. Also Archangel Michael. So just overall, she's a very beautiful celestial template. But I do find it interesting that most of these divine feminines are born under the sun of Capricorn. They're born. Their sun is guiding them through the major avian trinity activation. So that does have a lot to say for upcoming and future incarnations of the leadership of the divine feminine. We're going to see an uprising continuously through these particular star encryptions. They do seem to be the way showers of the divine feminine, of the divine mothers, in her most leadership, warrior, battle qualities. So it's a beautiful thing. I'm really happy I pulled this chart today. If you have any questions about Queen of Zenobia or about this reading today, go ahead and drop them in the comments, or, you can go to my website, IndigoAngel222.com, if you would like to check out my services. Also, you can find my book there, How to Read Celestial Akashic Starseed Origins, and I give my methodology as to how I go about doing this. So you can read about that, and that's awesome. So namaste, guys. I love you so much. I hope you're having a beautiful rest of your day, and I'll see you on the next reading.